Well, hello. I want to welcome everyone here with us today. And this is the Hopenings episode 8. Can you believe it, Fran?
Yay.
So I just want to do a short introduction. So the Hopenning is a place where hope is happening when you open your mind and your heart. So we are Fran and Marina. Fran has been a teacher for 33 years, working with elementary school children, and you specialized in special ed. And Marina is pretty much jack of all trade. I have been an opera singer. I now sing in big bands. And both of us are now certified hypnotherapists, and we specialize in rapid transformational therapy. And so we are very happy to have you with us today. So today, Fran is our speaker, and our topic is a part 2 of what we talked about 2 weeks ago. And that is all about our relationship with food. I almost said fruit. So Fran, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit more about that. Why don't you recap and then tell us your personal story about relationship with food?
Right. So thanks, Marina. So yeah, my relationship with food has gone back since I was a child. Those of you who know me know that my family was a very large family, 12 siblings. I was the 10th in the family. And in our family, you didn't get a lot of attention because there was just a lot of kids and a lot of hard work, and we didn't get a lot of attention. So I think I compensated by feeding myself to make me feel better, myself feel better. And as I got older, I developed food problems. I became bulimic as an older teenager, and I wrestled with that for a few years. And then after the bulimia came an obsession with being an athlete, an obsession with exercise to control the weight. I never came from high numbers. However, I always had probably a 20, maybe 25 or 30 pounds that I struggled to get rid of. And I could not get rid of it because of my lifestyle choices. And so I, because of the high degree of exercising I needed to do to control my weight, I developed problems with my back, problems with my bones. I have an ongoing problem with my electrolyte balances. And so because of my food addictions, I ended up with problems later on in life that I still work with. And it wasn't until about 4 years ago that I decided for myself it was time to make a change. And at that time, I started to eliminate certain things out of my diet. I took out the sugar, I eliminated flour. Those were the big ones. And I did not want to admit that I was a sugar addict. I did not want to admit I was any kind of an addict, right? It's healthy to exercise. Everybody says it, that we all need to get out and exercise, and I did. And but as I just said, it was a compensation for the food addictions, and the sugar addiction had been with me since childhood. It was something that I struggled with. When I felt depressed, I would go for the fridge. I would eat the cookies. I would go for the pie. I would eat the marshmallowy thing that had, the creamy marshmallowy with peanut butter and fantastic food. But when you're an addict and you're trying to keep your feelings down, that's what you put on top of it. And it's all about really trying to numb the pain. A lot of the time it has to do with pain. And so a lot of people will ask, well, why flour, Fran? Why did you get rid of flour? There's nothing wrong with flour. And maybe back in the day when they used 2 rocks or something to process grain into flour, there was nothing wrong with flour. However, with the amount of processing that goes into foods nowadays that have flour in it, there's very little left of the good stuff. And instead, there's the concentrated uh, hit that goes right into your bloodstream, converts right to sugar. So yeah, there is a problem with flour too. However, not everybody becomes an addict. And for me, what the flour in my diet came, I became addicted to flour right from the time I was a little girl, getting off the school bus, coming into the house, and there's mom's fresh baked bread. So just the smell of bread walking past a bakery now just triggers, just those feel good feelings about just being at home and being, in the kitchen, and it's just a wonderful memory, right? And so for me, that's a trigger for me. And you throw some extra sugar in with that, and you create a donut with a whole bunch of gooey jelly stuff on it. It's like, and that is the way. And I know I'm not alone. So I talked a lot about that last week, and I talked about how in order to have a healthy relationship with food, we have to look at food as though it's a living entity. A relationship is built with another living thing. And we talked about how in relationships, whether it's a spouse or a partner or friendships or whatever, there needs to be a healthy things that we do in relationship in order to have a healthy relationship. So we talked about how we are attuned to the other person. We know how that person is feeling. We communicate with that other person. There's a dialogue back and forth. Well, it's the same with food. If we want to have a healthy relationship with food, we need to be attuned into what we are doing when we are consuming that product. What is the feeling inside of us? So it's important to stop and think about, what is the reason I'm going for that food? Is it because I'm truly hungry? Am I really hungry? If you ask yourself that, yourself will a lot of times answer you, and it may say, yeah, fine, you're hungry, go for it. But if you look deep and go, how can I be hungry? I only ate half an hour ago or 3/4 of an hour ago. I'm not hungry. So your belly's telling you you're not hungry. Your brain is trying to convince you you are. So what is the feeling that I'm actually feeling? Well, I'm just a little upset now because of whatever. I'm a little bit sad that I'm sitting here alone in my kitchen, and I'm just feeling lonely. Okay, well, that's different than hunger. Well, I'm just a little bit concerned now about so-and-so being ill. Okay, well, that's not hunger. That is concern. It could be terror. It could be whatever. And so what I'm going to talk about today is not just the addiction, but how we need to improve our relationship with food itself. So if food controls you, then that's unhealthy. If a person is constantly thinking about where, or I can't wait to get home so that I can go into the pantry and get that thing to eat, that's not healthy. I mean, and it even could be that you're hungry, but when we're to the point where we're thinking about food, where we've made food the focus of our life, we can do that with other human beings too. And that is unhealthy. It's an unhealthy relationship. So Marina, last week, you talked a little bit about your relationship with food as well in the past. Let's have a recap of what you experienced in your own life as well.
Yes, the food has been a really, really big issue for me. Oh my goodness, it's such a difficult journey for me. because it really became my comfort for a long time in my life. That is, and it became control. I was in a situation where I had a very strict upbringing, and at a point where there was a fear that I may become chubby, which I did. Um, my mom would come home with chocolate bars for the rest of the family, and she would say, "Oh, Marina, you cannot get one because you're getting a bit chunky." And I started to eat in secret. I would take my allowance and go to there was we called it the Superette right next to my high school. And I would go and buy that with one of my friends. I would buy bags full of chocolate. There was this caramel, it was called caramello chocolate. It was a little bear. And on the inside of the bear was caramel, like a chocolate, chocolate and caramel. And I still think of that. And the other one was in South Africa, one called Jelly Tot. And even recently, when I went back to South Africa, I bought bags full of Jelly Tots, and I almost had a bag every single day. And so it's still that emotional trigger for me to food. And today I have to catch myself because I would get bored. I would sit in my business and think, okay, I need to brainstorm things. I'm a little bit, I don't know which way to go forward. And I would jump up and walk into the kitchen and think, okay, what am I going to eat? What am I going to stuff in my mouth? Or I'm upset, something upsets me. And the first thing I do is to run to the kitchen. What can I eat? What can I drink? And I don't want black coffee. I want coffee with a lot of cream in it. And I don't want a herbal tea. I want a chai latte with lots of sugar and spices in it. And so, yeah, so it's, for me, that's been an issue all my life. And it's that journey of learning new coping skills. Like, where do I really want to be? What is really my desire? And I've had a lot of success with it. And now it's almost, I always tease because I'm in maintenance, and I'm actually in a maintenance support group as well. If your dog chases a car and now it caught the car, what is it going to do with it? So that's how I feel. I chased being at a healthy weight, and now I'm there. Now what? So to make it stick sometimes, I think, is a subject we don't always talk about. So that's my journeys, friends. So I would like to know what you do. How do you help yourself? What can you tell our audience?
Well, first of all, I am quite, as you know, because I'm an addict, I have eliminated sugar and flour out of my diet. And it is so people say, well, how can you do it, Fran? There's sugar and flour and everything. Well, really, there's not. There's only sugar and flour in products that have put sugar into it. And there's flour in certain types of products, like the breads and the pastries and all of those kinds of things, right? I still eat oats. I eat buckwheat, I eat whole grains, I eat, as long as they're a whole grain, they haven't been pulverized to the point where they're so concentrated in that hit of that carbohydrate hit, as long as it's a whole grain. And so I'm very careful about that. Another thing I do, which I wanted to talk about, is 3 meals a day. And we talk about the relationship with food, and I liken it to a real relationship. So if you're around your loving husband 24/7, it's not going to be long before you're at each other's throats, right? And we can love someone so much, and you want to be with them and you love them, but too much time with something is not good. My mom had this little thing that she used to say that distance makes the heart grow fonder. And it's true. Having timed meal times makes the stomach love you better. And so I only eat at mealtime. I do not snack. Snacking is not something that historically we did. Historically, people sat down, they ate their meal with their family, they took the time to eat their meal, and then they left and they did work. They worked hard. They were not taking a fruit roll up onto the field to eat with them, right? And then they sat and they had their meal, and then they did the same thing again, you know. And some people have narrowed that down to 2 meals a day, which works well for them. Some people have decided that they'll have 1 meal a day and have an extended long fast. But the experts say we should be fasting between our last meal of the day and our breakfast, if we eat breakfast, at least 13 hours. That's the minimum. So if we eat our last meal, like say we finished eating at 7 o'clock in the evening, we shouldn't be eating again until the next morning at 8 o'clock, at least. So that's, and you might ask, well, why, Fran? Why can't I have that, the whatever it is that is our go-to food in the evening? Well, because your stomach needs time to process the food. And it's also been shown in studies that your circadian rhythm that tells you and allows you to go to sleep and have an extended sleep period, a nice deep sleep, oftentimes has to do with how warm your body is. And if your body is still trying to metabolize the food, that creates heat in your body. Metabolism creates heat. And oftentimes, if you go to bed on a full stomach, your body is creating too much heat in order for you to fall into a deep sleep. Or you might fall asleep and then you'll wake up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. because your body is too hot. So that is one thing. I space my meals apart. I actually don't eat my first meal until 11:30. So 11:30 is when I eat my first meal. And then I eat my second meal 4 hours later at about 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then I eat my last meal between 7 and 8 o'clock in the evening. So it gives me a long period of fasting in the middle. And I don't have problems with my sleep. A lot of my friends do. A lot of my friends, especially if they have something on their mind, don't sleep well. And that's not been a problem for me. So that's one thing I do. The second thing is I watch my quantities. So even if I don't eat sugar and flour, I need to be watching how much I'm putting on the plate, or am I going for seconds? Because that also can mess with your food relationship. It's the same thing with a real relationship. It's like in a relationship, it's not a good idea to like really be clingy onto your partner, like just cling to it, you know. Anytime, it's always good to give healthy space. So for me, when I'm at home, I'm very conscious of my quantities. I eat a large amount of vegetables, a large amount. Someone will say, Fran, you're eating the whole freaking salad that's on the table, and that's me. That is me. I eat huge amounts of vegetables, and I eat a fair amount of protein. Because of my age, and I'm going into, you know, an age, and because I'm physically active, I need to have a larger amount of protein than if I were younger or if I wasn't as active. So protein is important. I also eat grains. I do make sure I eat grains, but it's not the overly processed grains. My body can't handle that. I know I'm an addict. And so taking the time, thinking about the time of meals, looking at quantities. If I'm in a restaurant, it'll be a 1-plate meal. So if I go to the buffet and I'm looking at the buffet, especially in an Indian restaurant, those are my favorite, right? I have a 1 plate. It's just 1 plate. I'm not ever going to be going back for seconds or thirds, and I skip the desserts altogether. I just don't do desserts. So that's what I do. I also wanted to talk about some of the things you mentioned about when you were a child and your parents were very strict about not giving you food, right? certain treat because they had labeled you as getting chubby or whatever. And you also mentioned another thing about when you're bored and you head for the fridge, right? So have you ever felt, Marina, that there were parts of you that were struggling, that there was a part of you that wanted to go to the fridge and check out again what's in the fridge because potentially there's something new to eat there since the last time you were there 15 minutes ago? I know that there's that part in me, but there's also a part that's saying, don't do it, Marina, don't do it. Do you ever struggle with that? Um, because I do. And I'd like to talk on that a little bit.
It's that inner dialogue, and I think all of us knows what is right. And but it's that emotional addiction to me. It's not always um, the kinds of food. I mean, like you, I have been on a journey of sugar and low carbs, because to me specifically, I had a bad relationship with insulin. And so the awareness that if I allow my body to fast for a certain amount of time, the insulin has a time to recover. I am insulin resistant. I have metabolic syndrome. I had a fatty liver. There was a lot of things that went wrong in my life. So that was a huge motivation for me. I wanted to get healthy. I still want to remain healthy. And that's still a big motivator for me. But it is the emotional component for me that is what is always my driving force. So to me, it's not necessarily going to look what's in the fridge. It's the act of eating. That is such a huge emotional coping mechanism for me. And definitely an addiction, because like some people would go to alcohol when they need to numb themselves emotionally. I would go to eating. That is definitely my issue. And so to consciously catch myself in that moment, exactly what you're talking about. When I followed Dr. Jason Fung, there was a picture of him that I found online that I put on my fridge, and it was a stop sign with him saying, "Stop eating." And I put that on my fridge. And you mentioned snacking. That was a very important thing to me. But to me, it's definitely catching my emotions, being aware of my thoughts, being aware of my inner dialogue. So what would you do? Like if you have a client with this emotional association with eating, not necessarily the kinds of food.
Yeah, the emotion is the half of it, right? We've got the addiction part, and then we've got the emotional eating part. And oftentimes the emotional eating is just the continuous eating thing, whether it's no matter what you're eating, it's the emotion attached to why you're eating. And so there's something interesting that we do in our practice, which has a basis in a modality called internal family systems. And internal family systems was developed it's a modality that was developed in the 1980s by a man named Richard Schwartz. And Richard Schwartz found, he was a clinical psychologist with PhD in research. And he found that when he was working with bulimics and trying to work through that with them, and he found that oftentimes with people who were suffering with bulimia really struggled with these parts inside themselves that were at war with each other. The part that was saying, take it, Marina, eat it, you deserve it, you've had a hard day. And the other part that was saying, don't do it, Marina. And then there's another part that's saying, if you eat that, you're going to be a big fat, you're going to be so fat and ugly. And then there's another part that's saying, nobody loves me. Nobody ever, there's these parts inside of us that are at war with each other. And so what Richard Schwartz did was he started to research this, and he found out, and he started to create a practice based on talking to these parts. And we do that in RTT. We talk to the part of the person who for whatever reason that they're coming to see us, we talk to the part of them, and we help that part to either leave, or we give them a different job. And so what Richard Schwartz did, he labeled the two parts, either the managers or the indulgers. So the managers are the ones that are trying to keep you on track. They're trying to make sure that Marina is eating, no sugar, limited carbs, watch your insulin, keeping track of how much is on our plate, how many times have we gone to the fridge, are you eating between meals? The manager is managing this. And the indulger parts of us are the ones that are saying, take it, eat it, it'll do you good. The indulger parts of us are the ones that send us towards what we're craving. And, we know that physiologically that when we're chewing, the chewing actually does help to regulate the cortisol. It helps to eliminate the cortisol. It helps us to feel better. So getting rid of the addiction helps us to have diminished cravings. It helps to detox our body. It helps us to become more automatic with choosing healthy choices. But until we deal with the emotional side, we will still be attracted to, Marina, you've had a hard day, you deserve it, that. And until we actually address those parts and say, hey, at one time I was small and I couldn't control the fact that my mom treated me different than my siblings, and she treated me as though, called me chubby. And, when I was little, I couldn't do anything about that. But now I'm an adult and I know that I'm beautiful. I know I can control what I eat. I know. So instead of saying I need that chocolate bar or the candy bar or the pail of ice cream, what I want the manager to help my indulger, right? I want everybody to get along within me. And the only way we can do that is by talking to our parts and acknowledging them and saying, yeah, you were little at one time and you were beautiful no matter how you were. And I will take care of you. So that food controller often will treat you the way you were treated as a kid. So if your mom said, no way, Marina, you can't have that chocolate bar, the food controller will say, no way, Marina, you can't have that chocolate bar. But if we can talk to that controller part of us and say, thank you for helping me control my eating, but I can take it from here. And then you give them the opportunity to say, okay, thank you. That part of you, okay, thanks, Marina. This has been a hard job. I've been doing it for 50 some years. So fine, you go over there. I can control my own food. There's also a part of you called the rebel. So I don't know if you ever experienced that part of you that says, no way, man, I'm going to eat what I want. I don't care that it's midnight and I'm heading for the pantry. If I want to eat that food, I'll eat it. Is there ever a part of you that says that?
Well, that makes me think back exactly in high school when I was told, you know what, you need to start watching what you're eating. And I had that inner voice saying, oh yeah, I'll show you. So I just would go and buy my own chocolates. And so it was a matter of a rebellion and giving control. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, my bulimia was that. My bulimia, it's like, oh yeah, just watch me. Right. And so I go for it. And then that controller part of me is like, oh my God, Brian, you got to get rid of all that. So it would be purging, right? And then another part of me, an isolator, would be like, oh goodness, Fran, that's pathetic. What did you just do? Oh, that, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be going over there and you should be isolating for a while. There's these parts of us that are just wreak havoc on you. And the neat thing about RTT is we can we can, through therapy with our client, we can talk to whichever part wants to talk, and it's beautiful. And by giving them another job, by talking to them and letting them know that they're not necessary anymore because we're adults now and we can handle it, it's a beautiful thing that can happen. The last thing I wanted to talk about was how important it is to the habits that we have to help us continue our relationships. So, I always throw that relationship out there to you. It's like you might have a habit that your husband hates. Maybe you're the one that wants to always talk at bedtime. I don't know. Maybe your husband is the one that always wants to talk about the news at bedtime. Or, there's these habits that we have, and unless we tell our partner gently that is something we don't like, the habits can break a relationship. It's like, how many times have I told you to put your dirty socks in the hamper? So habits can make us or break a relationship. So one way to develop a healthy habits with food is to practice the visualization. And in RTT and what we do, rapid transformational therapy, we are very skilled. You and I are very skilled at what we call the transformation, and it's the transformational recording that we make because we have spent time with the client in an hour or more. We know their family history. We've spent time with them dialoguing with whatever part of them needs healing. And so then we go into the transformational recording. And I know you're very skilled at it. I am too. And so mentally rehearsing the positive relationship with food is extremely important. Even without food in our hands, the mental rehearsing is really important. And so it was way back in the 1990s, I think, that they started doing studies with visualization. And one of the first studies that was done was with basketball players. So they took these basketball players, and it was at the University of Chicago, because visualization became something that they started looking into. They started to do research with. So they took this group of basketball players and they divided them into 3 groups. And the first set of basketball players, they gave them 1 extra hour of practice a day, physical practice, where they were shooting hoops, where they were doing layups, where they were doing everything in order to build their skills. The second group, they did not give them the extra hour of physical practice. Instead, they gave them an hour of practicing visualization. So they would visualize the shot. They would visualize the sound of it. They would visualize the feel of the basketball in their hand. They would visualize even maybe the smell of the basketball. They would visualize the sound of it going through the hoop and through a clean basket, the swoosh. That's the visualization that 1/3 of the group had. And the last 1/3 had nothing. It was the control group. Well, they found that the ones who actually did an extra hour of physical practice improved their game by 24%. Wow. They found the ones that did the visualization for an hour without touching a basketball improved 23%. And the ones that were the control group that did neither, 0%. So it was like, oh my God, this stuff works. And so it became a big thing in the sports world. And so because you and I are Canadian, we both know this little girl named Bianca Andreescu, who won the US Open in 2019, I believe, at the age, I think she was 17. She won the US Open. And she defeated Serena Williams, who had been top seed for years and years and years. And here's this little Canadian girl, right? All excited. She's just beat Serena Williams. And, her interview right after the game went viral about, what did you do? I mean, you're a 17-year-old from Canada. You're beating a top seeded world class athlete. What did you do? And she said it. She spent time visualizing every night before she went to bed. She visualized every serve, every return. She visualized being on the court, receiving the award. She visualized the crowd cheering. That's what she did. And she won. And she's now number 4 in the world. Like,
Amazing.
she's still 21 years old. And the other very, very famous person, and he talks about this a lot, is Michael Phelps, the American swimmer. He's the most decorated Olympic athlete ever. I think he's got 26 medals, 26 Olympic medals. What does he do? Visualizes. So he does that before bedtime every night. He visualizes putting on his swim glasses, stretching, he visualizes the sound around him, the hat being pulled down. He visualizes every stroke, counting strokes, the flip turn coming back. That's what he does. And he related on an episode of when he was in an Olympic, one of the first, one of the first swims in the Olympics, where if you do not do well, you do not go further. And I mean, he's in the center lane. He knows he's good, right? Well, he dives into the water and his goggles fill up with water. Like, I mean, it could have been a disaster, but he had visualized that so many times in his, visualized it over and over and over. He knew exactly how many strokes it would take. He knew exactly how long it would take to do the flip turn. He knew exactly, he couldn't see a thing. He's in the water with his goggles full of water. He not only was first in that heat, he broke his own record. So the power of visualization is extremely important. So I believe one thing that we do well is our transformation, the recording. And in order for our viewers to really get a handle on food, is to visualize that they already can do this. And so today I have a meditation. I've already created it. And it will be available at the end of this recording. But I would like to take a few minutes and just give a little preview of what this meditation is all about, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely fantastic, Fran. I absolutely love that. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, so, and this is the way I would do it. I change my voice, and you will notice my voice has changed, but it becomes a very melodic, hypnotic, how can I say it? Boring. It's a little boring. However, I think you'll get the hint. Marina, you know me, but I think our viewers will understand once we get going here. Okay.
Perfect.
I want you to get comfortable in the bed or chair or couch and breathe in deeply. And as you exhale, I want you to feel an ocean wave rolling over your body from your head right down to your feet. Very good. And take another deep breath in through the top of your head, and it rolls out your body. And as it rolls out of your feet, you feel the muscles and nerves in and around your eyes and in your face relaxing. And then you can close your eyes as you listen to me. And taking another deep breath in, as this ocean wave rolls over your body, you feel all the muscles in your shoulders, in your face, and in your body and legs becoming very, very relaxed. And so if you are sitting down, your back is straight. You are sitting upright with your 2 feet flat on the floor. And with your eyes closed, I want you to settle into your body and feel your breath moving into your nose expanding your stomach out gently and expanding your lungs fully and releasing through your mouth. And your hands go soft. And so, with your body completely relaxed, I want you to imagine there are two choices of food in front of you. You see these choices of food, and one is a healthy choice. This is a food that you love to eat because it is so healthy. And the other is a food that you have difficulty with. You are addicted to eating, or you know triggers a binge. You decide for yourself what both these choices of food look like, how they are arranged in front of you and on the table in front of you. And so, with this one food that you are addicted to or that triggers you to overeat, an unhealthy state of mind and body comes over you. An unhappy feeling comes over you when you look at the food. And so, as you look at this food, suddenly an overwhelming feeling of disinterest in the food replaces that feeling. You notice this food does not mean a thing to you. It is as though it becomes invisible. And so when you look at the food, nothing seems to register in your mind's eye at all. Your eyes take no notice of it. Instead, your eyes move intentionally without another conscious thought to the healthy food choice. This is a food that you know loves you. It is wholesome, nutritious. It loves your body, mind, and soul. It's a food that you will be glad that you ate. And as you remind yourself later by how good you feel in your mind, body, and soul, this beautiful, nutritious choice. And so, without thinking any further, you see your hand reaching towards the healthy choice, and you pick it up. You pick up the plate or bowl in your hands, and you smell that food. And it smells wonderful, smelling clean and fresh and wholesome. The smell of the food enters your nostrils, and you give thanks for the amazing smells the food contains. And so as you bring that food towards you, you see the amazing color of the food, the shape of each of the pieces on that plate or in the bowl in front of you. You see the light making shadows on the food, and each color seems to pop out against each other. You see how the food is shaped and formed, and you feel yourself picking up a spoon or a fork or knife and putting it down. You begin to cut into it or scoop it up. And so that beautiful, healthy food right there on the fork or spoon, you raise it to your lips, and the taste of the food blossoms in your mouth with smoothness and cleanness. And you have a deep sense of gratefulness and gratitude as the food enters your mouth. So you chew this food slowly and intentionally, and you make every bite count. So you take the time as you're chewing to thank the food for being present and available for you today. And with each chew you have and every time you swallow, you know this food is healing your body. Each chew sends healing chemicals to every part of your body, which needs the complex minerals and vitamins and fiber that food so easily and effortlessly gives you. Your stomach appreciates how easy it is to digest this food that your body understands and loves. And as you return the spoon or fork each time to the plate or to the bowl, everything seems to slow down around you, and you see the magnificence of the food in front of you. And you look and see the care and attention of every person and every plant or animal that brought this food to you. And you thank all of them involved in the gardening, the orchards, the fields, all the people, the animals, even the pieces of equipment that brought that food to you today to help you heal. And so you thank that food and the people and the land calmly, quietly, and the essence of this beautiful, nourishing food lingers in your mouth and in your stomach. Each bite intentional and thoughtful. And then when the plate is empty or you feel you've had enough to eat and you know you're finished eating, the feeling of complete satisfaction, contentment, calm, and ease rolls through your body and mind. And so sometimes you tell people about the wonderful food that you have just eaten, and you, in moments, remember that conversation in detail, and you tell people exactly about your food choice, and you feel so good in your mind and body by telling people about your healthy food choices. And so you live into this choice of healthy eating, and you take the actions every day to make it so. And the actions that you take after you finish that meal and you're so feeling contentment and calm and ease is you take the time to let that food settle and digest in your body. And whether you take 3 hours or 4 hours or more between the next meal, you know that there is nothing that you're going to have in the meantime, because you know that having 2 or 3 or sometimes just one healthy meal a day is exactly what your body needs. And so this time, you know that you have created a healthy relationship with food. And so you listen to this recording every day, and often just listening to the sound of my voice or remembering the sound of my voice and the words of this meditation help you to build your ability to have healthy eating choices and healthy eating practices. And so whether you are awake or whether you are asleep while you're listening to this meditation, it does not matter. And if you are asleep, you can stay asleep knowing that in the morning when you wake up, you will become even stronger with your food choices and food intentions. And if you are awake while you're listening to this meditation, I will count you back from 5 to 1. And on the count of 5, you begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. And on the count of 4, you move the larger muscles in your arms and in your legs and in your body. And on the count of 3, you become aware of the room around you and the sounds you hear. And on the count of 2, you take a deep breath in. And on the count of 1, you gently open your eyes, so grateful that you are building your relationship with food, having a healthy mind, body, and soul.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Fran. Very
You're
good. Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. My
So
pleasure.
we are on to some exciting stuff moving forward. And next week, we will have our very first guest on our show. Her name is Emily Hall, and she's based in the UK. She's one of our RTT colleagues, and she has had over 20 years of experience in this field of emotional eating. So she's an emotional eating specialist with an absolute amazing bio, which we will share in detail next week. But one little teaser is she's known as the Naked Lady. And the only reason is she makes women feel comfortable in their own bodies, comfortable being naked, which I think is something so important for all of us. So I'm looking forward to welcoming Emily next week.
Me
And
too.
looking forward to seeing you all there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, have a lovely week, everybody. And thanks again, Fran.
Thank you, Marina.
Okay.